Hello, seniors. I hope you are all doing well. Today's lesson is about market price, which is the negotiation agreement between buyer and seller. So now that we've talked about supply and demand, we're going to put it together. So, what is the learning objective? The learning objective is to understand how prices and salaries are negotiable between the buyers and the sellers, and also to understand how you would play a role as a demand, as in the role of demand as a consumer, or the role as supplier as your craft, or even if you own a business, even if you don't own a business, you are selling your service. Okay, so this is like a summary of why we're learning supply and demand. Okay, all right. So of course we have the national standards and we have the California standards, okay, which is talk about how the economy works. So basically, we need to understand supply and demand to understand the way the economy works. We talked about how in a command economy, the government makes all decisions, but in supply and demand, the prices are determined by the seller and the buyer, okay? And that is in most of the cases. Okay, not all, of course, because we do have a mixed economy where the government does play a part. All right, so if you look at, I put a link, okay? If you look at your assignments, you would see that there's a link to what I'm doing here, okay? So here we have, so these are 10 basic vocabulary words that we've been discussing, and I hope that by now you kind of get what they mean. So demand is the willingness and ability and desire to buy a product. So there's a demand for milk. You know what? I'm just going to increase it so we can see the picture better. Oh, maybe that's too much. Okay. So like there's a demand for milk. So here's the demand milk and the supply is the cow. All right, on this column, just put something like, I understand that demand means what from the buyer's point of view. Okay, so the next word is supply. So the supply refers to the seller, right? Demand refers to the buyer. Okay, it's how much is offered at a particular price. Okay, how much the seller is willing to sell. Okay, and here we have a picture of the uh, all types of suppliers, okay? And you could say something in the last column that something in regards to, I understand that Costco is a supplier, okay? The third word is increase in demand, so it means you want a product more, okay? So I just put, I want more. The fourth word is, oh, so you could just put, you could write a sentence like, I have my demand for hand sanitizers increased, for instance. Okay. Then there's an increase of supply. When supply increases, it means more people want to sell the product. Okay. So what motivates the seller? We talked about that. We talked about that they're making more money for it. Okay. So recently I saw that there's been an increase in the supply of avocado. Why? Because there's all this media hype, or maybe it's not hype, but doctors are talking about how avocados increase the immune system, how it's good for all these things right here. So there is an increase in supply. Okay. Now, a decrease in demand is when instead of I want more, is that you want less products. You want less of the products. So right now we see there's a decrease in milk and butter. So what are they doing? They're like the suppliers are just destroying the milk and the butter. Milk rather. Okay, a decrease in supply. It's when the supply goes down because people are not buying. So demand and supply they're like seesaws. Okay, they're like demand. They correlate to each other. They work together, just like a buyer and a seller. They're always in negotiation with each other. So here we see that because of COVID, a lot of people are not buying fruits and vegetables, and the farmers are just letting it rot. So we see that. Okay. But when there is that negotiation, when the buyer says, okay, I'm willing to buy it at that price, and the seller's like, I'm willing to sell it at the price. Okay. So, I cover my cost of production, I'm making money, and the buyer's like, I could definitely afford this. Okay, then you have what is called an equilibrium. So of course you have here the agreement between the supply and demand where they meet right here. That is the equilibrium, and it is the same. You could say equilibrium or you could say market price. It is the same exact thing. Okay, then we have a shortage. Well, what's a shortage? When there is more demand than there is supply. So we see here, like for instance, you could say toilet paper. Okay, there's a shortage of toilet paper. You go to the stores and right here, like the sign says, only 2 per customers because of tight supply. And then there's a surplus, okay, when there's too much of a product, okay. So now because people are buying frozen fruits and vegetables because they don't want to go to the store that often, you have a surplus of fresh fruits and vegetables, okay. So I hope, so I just want to see 1 or 2 sentences in that column. I just want to get an idea that you understand. I'm just checking for understanding. Okay. So you could kind of say the same thing here in that column, and that would fulfill the 1 point. That's how you would get the 1 point. Okay. Now to get the depth of knowledge too. Okay. I did put these links again. I put Khan Economy. I had a couple of students tell me they did not like it. So I put the 2 videos here. Okay. And it's Jacob Clifford, I believe his name is. So if there's something I'm giving you and you do not like, or you say, Miss, or you do like it, I appreciate the feedback. I appreciate you telling Miss, I like this or I didn't like that. Okay, so part 2, depth of knowledge, you're going to match the vocabulary with the chart. Okay, so I want to know that you're able to read the chart. So let's do the first one as an example. So A says the curve shows the law of supply. Okay, because as price increases, the more sellers want to sell the product. And I mentioned this again, repetition helps. Basically, if you are selling a product, if you're selling cars, would you rather sell a Tesla or would you rather sell a Honda? Of course, you'd rather sell the Tesla because it's giving you more money. Okay, so the curve shows that as the price decreases, less seller wants to sell the product. The supply curve starts at or close to the zero and then moves away from the zero to show the quantity is increasing. The curve comes from a low price in the x and the y axis and moves up from the zero to show that the price goes up using up more sellers, okay, in the x axis. Okay, so let me explain that. All right. So here we have the x axis, right? Just like in math, and here you have the y axis. Okay, so this is just information. So this is the basic information to understand all the curves. And as you see, the zero is always here in the middle, in the lower left-hand side is where the zero is, okay? And the numbers go up when you move up the y-axis, and when you move towards the x-axis, if they're going towards your right, then they're going up. If you're going towards your left, then it's going lower. The number's going lower because it's going towards the zero. All right, so let's take a look at number 1. Okay, so here we have the supply curve. Okay, so it touches the zero, okay, where demand curve would go away from the zero. So supply curve is always going towards the zero because it shows the law of supply. So at $0, you're not going to have anyone trying to sell anything because they're not going to make money. Okay. At $2, 2 store owners want to sell it. At $4, 4 store owners want to sell it. Okay. So it goes up, right? It goes, the more expensive, the more people want to buy it. So this is definitely, so what you would put here is A. Okay. So number 1 is A. Okay. So now let's go back to B. All right. And I highlighted the main points. The curve shows the law of demand because as price increases, less people want to buy the product. Exactly. So the cheaper the things are, the more people want to buy it. The curve also shows that as price decreases, more people want to buy the product. Okay. The demand curve does not go towards the zero, right? Okay, the demand curve comes from a high price. So let's do that here. Okay. Let me just, from the high price and moves away from the zero to show that the price goes down. More people want to buy it. Okay, so let's scroll here. That's 2. Okay, so here we see, look at the demand curve. The supply curve goes towards the zero. You see it right here? It's touching the zero, where the demand curve is not. It goes away from the zero. Okay, so the supply curve would go like this, right? And now the demand curve is the opposite, because that makes sense. Because look, if something is 0, 10 people are going to want to buy it. 10 out of 10, because it's 0. Hey, you want this for free? Sure, I want it for free, right? But if it's $2, well, okay, 8 people are going to want to buy it. Okay, so as the price goes higher, less people want to buy it. You see that? Okay, so that is, so number 2 is letter B. So you just put the letter B right there. Okay, all right. So now let's go to C. Let's read C. So I added this part here just to make it easier to answer the chart. Okay, so C is an increase in demand because I can see a D curve that shows the original demand curve. And then I see a D1 curve, which shows a shift in demand. D1 has a higher, so the x-axis. So if it's higher, okay, it's going away from the 0 than D. All right, so let's go down and I'll explain that with the graph. All right, so take a look at this graph. All right, so it shows D, which is the original price, the original demand curve rather. And then D1 shows something change. And remember, we talked about that. Why does demand change? Oh, because it becomes popular, it becomes cheaper. The substitute, became more expensive or whatever. So there's many reasons why demand goes up. So if you see here, remember the 0 is always here, right? And this is the original demand curve. I know it looks more like a line, but they call it a curve. Okay, so here 600 people, well, right here at $60, 500 people were willing to buy it. Okay, but now it's still $60, but for some reason it could be it became popular, or a celebrity promoted it, or people are getting paid more. For some reason it increased. So now it's still the $60, but now instead of 500 people wanting to buy it at $60, now it's 600 people. So there's an increase in demand. Okay, so 3 is C. Okay, so you just put the letter C right there. All right, now let's go to D. All right, an increase in supply. You know what? Let me do this better. Okay, let's see. So let me explain it while I read it. That will make better sense. All right, so let's look at 4. I know that this graph shows an increase in supply because I see a curve, an S curve that shows the original supply curve. And then I see a S1 curve which shows a shift in supply. S1 has a higher quantity, the x-axis right here, which is quantity, and the y-axis is price, right? Okay, so let's see here. So remember, the 0 is always here in the corner, in the left-hand corner. All right, so this is the original supply. So if here's 0, that means the numbers are going up this way, just like a number line in math. Okay, so let's say this was a 1. So first, only one store wanted to sell. Let's say this is like $1 here. Only one store wanted to sell it for $1. All right, but then let's say the supply, more people, more stores wanted to sell it. Maybe the cost of production went down or demand went up. For many reasons, we talked about the factors that affect supply. So now we just say maybe 10 people now want to sell it. Okay, so we see here that the supply has increased. Why? Because it's going up the curve, right? Okay. All right. And this is supposed to be, the computer just changed it. Okay. So this is 4. So it's D. Okay. So you guys get that we're going in order, right? I try to make it um, easier so you guys could understand it, because so we could see, okay, now this is E. Let's go to E. All right. And let's go down to number 5. All right. So I just want to make sure you understand it. I want to make it as simple as possible to understand. You see, it automatically puts a J, and this is E. All right. So now I know this graph shows a decrease in demand because, all right, let's see right here. So here here's demand, and we said, let me just put it down a little bit so we could see the quantity right here. Okay. So here's D, the original, and then D1, there's a shift. Okay. So for some reason, demand has decreased. And how do we know that? Because look, here, remember the 0 is always in the left-hand corner. So anything that goes towards the 0 is a decrease, and everything that goes away from the 0 is an increase. So here we have, right? Let's say here, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. So here we have 9 people wanted the product. Okay. And then we have 8 people want it. Okay. So there's a decrease. But let's see here. So let's say the price here. Okay, let's say this is $10. At $10, originally, okay, seems like 5 people wanted it, right? But now, okay, at this price, now like 3 people want it. See? Okay, so it shows a decrease because we see that the first curve was here. You guys see D, right? And then in D1 is going towards the 0, is going less on the number line. All right. So now let's go to F. Let's get F here. Okay. So now we're going to do a decrease in supply. Okay. That was a decrease in demand. So okay. Now we're doing a decrease in supply. Okay. And as you see, I went in order. Okay. Just so you could see, again, just to make it really easy. Okay. And this will be F. Okay. Now let's go. A decrease in supply. All right. Now it's the same thing. Okay. That here, always remember the 0 is in the corner, the left-hand corner, right? All right. So we see here at $10. Okay. First, you have the first supply curve. You have 40 people. 40 people wanted to supply it. Okay. So let's say 40 Costco's wanted to give the supply. But then, well, let's see what has decreased in supply. Let's say gallons of milk. Okay, so before the Costco by your house had 40 gallons of milk, but what's going on? People don't want to get milk. Why? Because the refrigerator and they don't want to go to the store that often. Okay, because of COVID. So now it's still $10. Well, that's a lot for a gallon of milk. Okay. So now only 20 Costco's want to sell it. Okay. All right. So we see a decrease in supply. How do we know? Because it's the next curve is closer to the 0. It's going below the number line. All right. All right. So that was F. Now let's do G. Okay. So what is G about? It's the equilibrium. And that's what this whole thing, we're putting together the supply and demand. Okay. So right here. Okay. Equilibrium. So I'm sure you learn about equilibrium in biology and many other classes. So equilibrium is where there's that balance, right? Okay. All right. So here we see the equilibrium of market price because the graph I see both a supply curve and a demand curve and the spot where they meet. Okay. So remember, the supply curve goes towards the zero, demand goes away from the zero. Okay. And where they meet indicates the equilibrium of market price. Please note this answer goes in two spots. Okay. So right here. So is where the buyer is saying, okay, yes, I'm willing to buy at this price, this many products. And the supplier is saying, yeah, I'm willing to sell you my supply at this price and this quantity. So it's the perfect medium. It's the yay, okay? And that is what suppliers and buyers are always trying to get at. So here it is again. So it's the same thing, okay? So market price and equilibrium is the same thing, okay? Is where the supplier and the buyer meet, okay? All right, now let's do H. So G goes in two spots. Okay. All right, let's see here. All right, now, okay. Let's go down here. So I hope with this video it clarifies. Again, if you're not sure, let me know. Okay, so this would be H. All right, so let's say here, we're a shortage. What's a shortage? Or how does the graph show a shortage? We saw that there's something missing, right? That people go to the store and, oh, there's not enough. So we say toilet paper, okay? So right here, let's say toilet paper, $2 a roll, okay? So there are 4 people who want to buy that toilet paper, $2 a roll. But you go to the store and there's no toilet paper, okay? So there's a shortage because you only have two toilet papers left and 4 people want to buy it. That's a problem. There's a shortage, okay? Now the opposite, you have a surplus, okay? Where there's too much of something. Okay, so here you would put I. Okay? So here we see right here, let's see, milk. 10 people, 10 stores. Oh, you know what? This one is a little bit. I hope that's not too small. There we go. Okay. So you have here 10 stores want to sell it. Okay. But only one person wants to buy it. So the store is now left with 9 gallons of milk. Okay. So what? The milk's going to go back. There's a surplus. Okay. So shortage and surplus are not good places. No. They're not good. You need to reach the equilibrium. Okay. So that's the second part. That's how you get your second points. And if you watch the video, all I want to see is that you put the letters. Okay. And it's super easy because all you need to do is put A, B, C, D, E, F, G, G twice, and then H, and then I. Okay. But the whole point is that I want you to understand it. You know, that's what I want. I want you to know how to do supply and demand curves. Okay. All right. The third part, and this is the key. Okay. This is what I want you to be able to do from the top of your head. Okay. Because this is the way the economy functions. To understand stocks, to understand salary, to understand anything about how it works in the market economy, you have to know how supply and demand curve works. So for instance, right here, using the law of supply and demand, how would you fill in the following blanks? As demand decreases, so in other words, less people want to buy it. What are the stores going to do? If less people want to buy it, Are they going to increase it or decrease it? Okay? They're going to decrease it. If no one's buying it, then they're going to decrease it. Okay? So it has to be A or C. Okay. So if no one's buying the product, what happens to the price? Are they going to make it higher so less people want to buy it? No, they're going to decrease. Okay. So right here. All right. So as demand decreases, less people want to buy it. Stores are going to decrease less. They're going to sell it less. And they have to put the market price down. Okay. To get rid of the product. Because remember, it's surplus. All right. Now this one. As demand increases, okay, more people want to buy it. What are stores going to do? Well, they're going to sell it, right? Okay. Because, hey, more people want to buy it. I'm going to make more money. And they're going to increase the price because they know people are going to want to buy it and they're willing to pay more. And if they increase the price and they realize people are not buying, they're going to be, okay, no, wait, let me decrease the price. Okay. So, you got to get the gist of it. Okay. So when supply decreases, okay, here's a little thing. Okay. When there's a shortage, what's going to happen to demand? Well, here's the thing. People start freaking out. So when let's say they're selling a car and it's a limited edition, don't get fooled by that. Because sometimes people like, oh my goodness, it's a limited edition. Let me get it right now before it's no more. I remember when Disney were advertising that, the videos for all these movies like The Little Mermaid, back in the days, there's a limited edition. The vault is going to close. There's going to be a shortage. No more supply. People freaked out. Why was Disney doing it? Because they knew DVDs were coming out. And they knew people were not going to buy anymore VHS, if you guys know what that is. Because I'm dating myself here, okay? So be careful when they say limited edition or people have this freak out mode, like toilet paper, okay? People now have toilet paper that lasts them for like 3 years. Why? Because they freaked out. Because why? Oh, the supply decreased. There's going to be a shortage. People start freaking out. So as supply decreases, demand increases, and the market price, every time demand increases, the market price is going to increase. And you see that now with the price gouging. All right, number 4. Let's do the fourth scenario. As supply increases, okay, so let's say this whole thing with the produce, okay, there's a lot of supply, a lot of supplies. What does the owners have to do, the suppliers? They have to decrease the price, because if not, they're going to get stuck with a surplus. So as supply decreases, the market price has to decrease. And what happens when the price decreases? Where more people want to buy it. Okay? So it's C. All right. I hope this is making sense to you guys. Please let me know. Okay, so we covered the 4 scenarios there. All right, now the fourth part. All right, how are you going to apply this to your life? Okay, because everything I teach is about applying to your life. All right, so you're going to click on this link right here. And this website is so awesome. It is wonderful, especially seniors. I was thinking, because I know many of you said you want to become nurses, and I hope that you still continue to want to be a nurse, especially because right now they are our heroes. But it's something, with everything that's going on, you may want to consider, hey, if you have a underlying condition, how is your health? So there's a lot of things that, the world is definitely changing. And right now is a good time to think, well, what is it? What careers do I want to choose? How is it going to affect my career? So these are the top careers, or not the top careers, but the careers that pay the most money. So you might want to take a look at that. Okay. And which one on the job? Okay. So just take a look. Tell me if you find any of these interesting. Again, this is based on a 2018. Okay. Salary. So things may shift tremendously. But psychiatrists, that's always going to be on demand. And we talk about demand, right? So now you're the seller. Okay. How's my job going to be in the future? Is there going to be a demand in the future? So remember, the government is not going to tell you, you have to do this. You choose what you want. But with choosing comes with a lot of responsibility. Freedom equals responsibility because you have choices. So you want to pick a career that has a lot of demand. Okay. So imagine, like right now, respiratory therapists, huge demand right now because of what? Because of COVID-19. Okay. You have anesthesiologists, okay, to work as a female doctor, okay, surgeon, orthodontics, all of this. And if you notice, most of these are like in the medical field. So that's it. Okay. So computer information, that's different. I noticed, okay, airline pilots, that might change now because not a lot of people are flying. So you see how demand and supply are always changing, okay? And this is why it's important for you to get an education because no one could take that away from you, okay? Petroleum, that is definitely changing now because people are buying less and less oil, okay? And marketing, okay? So business. So if you like something there, oh, this sounds interesting, or no, miss, I don't like any of these. It's fine, whatever you want. All right. Then you're going to list 3 careers that have a high demand. Let's see, fastest growing. Let's go back here. Okay. So I know right now it's like a lot of pressure. I understand that. But I do want you to make an informed decision. And here's the thing with supply and demand. We don't know what the future has. So something could have a high demand today and not tomorrow. Okay. So pilots had a huge demand and now they don't. Okay. Respiratory therapy right now is like a job where, oh, wow, now it's a big thing. Everybody wants, that's a high demand job right now. So these are jobs that are in demand. Okay. Fastest growing occupation. So take a look at those. Of course, everything with health, especially right now, is big. Okay. All right. Look, there's a lot of STEM jobs. Most of the things, if you look, there's a lot of STEM jobs. So take a look at those. Okay. Again, I do want you to choose a job that there's a demand for, but also a job that you like in the future. Okay. So, don't, follow your heart. Definitely 100%. Something that you like. Okay. But would also give you money in the future. Okay. And also, what is the demand for that? Okay. What jobs interest you? So you just give me 3 jobs. Okay. Then, right here. Okay. Now, 3, explain the supply of the career you're interested in. Are there many people who are pursuing the same career you want? Will demand surpass supply? Okay. Or will supply surpass demand? What do I mean by that? Okay. So right here, this is very important. This is pivotal right here. Okay. So in a job, okay, you have to think, is there going to be a demand for my job? Okay. And okay, let me just put something like real estate agent, not to knock it. Okay. But my husband got his real estate agent certificate and what have you. And the knowledge has served us very well. However, you have to think, okay, it is very easy to pass that test. So there's a huge supply and not as much demand. Okay. Like there could be a huge supply of nurses, but there's such a high demand that the supply of nurses, there's still more demand for nurses than there are nurses. You get me? Do you understand what I'm saying? Okay. Now, if there's a whole bunch of, let's say, real estate agents, but there's not a lot of demand for it, then it could be a struggle in the future. Okay. So that's what I want you to consider. Okay. So I want you to think about that. And if you go here, let's go back here, which is this, it's not the only source, but it is a very good source. So any career you're interested in. So let's just pick right. So you could go here. I'm just going to pick the top one. Okay. Let's say you want to be an engineer. Okay. This tells you everything. I'm just going to pick the first one. Okay, just gonna pick the first one of everything. Okay, so you've been making like 66,000 a year on average. And what I like about this, it's pretty accurate. It tells you how much you make, what do you need? You just need an associate's. Okay, how many work experience, a job training, number of jobs. Okay, so the number of jobs is what I want you to see. Okay, or 4%. So it is good. When you have a negative number, then you're like, ugh, I gotta maybe be consider. Okay, but the higher the number, the better. Okay, so according to this, the United States, there was 500 more engineers, aerospace engineers. Okay, so this comes from this is a .gov. Okay, so it comes from after the income taxes and what have you. Okay, and they do a lot of research. So, all right, then here, how does supply and demand affect the market price and salary? Okay, when there's a high demand, is the salary going to be good or low? Okay, if a lot of people want this, okay, so it's going to most likely, and this is just general, okay, because there's a high demand for teachers, yet the salary is low, okay, for the educational, for all the education that they ask us for. But this is general, okay. If there's a low supply, a low demand, then there's going to be a low salary, okay. So if you go to college and you learn how to weave baskets, okay, good, that's great. I'm not discouraging you, okay, but how many basket weavers do we need out there? All right, so just remember, the government is not going to tell you what to major in. Okay, they could encourage you, they could subsidize certain careers. Okay, they could say, oh, like for instance, special ed teacher, that's a huge demand right now that not many people want to go into. So the government is telling people, hey, if you major in special ed, we will pay for everything. Okay, so that's your responsibility to pick a good career. Okay, if there's a high supply, okay, then there's usually low salary. All right, because let's say you call a real estate agent again. I'm sorry, I'm picking it out. I can't find anything else. All right, and it's like, oh, you know what? It's you charge too much. I know 20 other people who want the same job. Okay, or okay, so try to pick. All right, let's go here. Low supply. If there's a low supply, then the salary is going to be high. Okay, and here's the key. Okay, if you find a job that has a high demand and a low supply, you're in the money. Okay, so why do surgeons and doctors make a lot of money? Because they save lives? Unfortunately, no, that's not the case. Because in other countries, okay, especially like communist countries like China and Cuba, where you have a lot of doctors, there's a high supply. Okay, so the salary, well, it's communist, but the salary will be low, or because there's a lot of them. Okay, so the key is, okay, is to find an example where you have a high demand and a low supply and you'll be making good money. Okay, all right, and here's, okay, so give me an example where there's an exception. Well, teachers. Okay, all right, there's always a high demand for teachers, but still the salary is low. Okay, you could say that. All right, all right, so I hope this lesson is valuable to you. It's something I think everybody should know, especially when you are in a market economy, of how it functions. You just to understand supply and demand, and that is always, every time you make any kind of financial decision, always consider the basis. So like in government, the Constitution is the basis of the government of the United States, or the Bible, if you will, quote unquote, or the guidebook. Supply and demand is the guideline to understand all other economic decisions. Okay. So again, if you have any questions, please email me. Okay. All right. Take good care of yourself. Bye bye.